So last week at a military trade show, I got asked the question, why do we make bullpup rifles? And what's the benefit of a bullpup rifle? And I got a big smile on my face. And I told the gentleman, I says, first, the lethal range of a bullpup rifle is much greater than a conventional rifle that has been cut down to be the same length. For example, this 20-inch barrel 5.56 produces 320 feet per second faster velocity at the muzzle than this 10.3-inch barrel Mark 18, and they're the exact same length. So what does that mean? That means that I get a 200% increase in lethal range with this rifle. So I can penetrate level 3 body armor at 385 yards, whereas the Mark 18 is only 175 yards. I can maintain optimal terminal velocity at 385 yards with this 20-inch barrel Wolverine. The Mark 18 can only maintain that velocity to 35 yards. So this gives you the same mobility of the Mark 18, but your lethal range is 200% better. Second, the biomechanics of the bullpup is superior to a conventional rifle. So the balance is right at the pistol grip, and you can see this is decked out as a DMR system with the full scope and everything, and I have no problem aiming this thing one-handed. Doing reloads with this in my shoulder is no problem whatsoever. However, your conventional rifles, it's barrel heavy. Now this is stripped down pretty light, but even doing mag changes, I could do mag changes with this up in my shoulder too, but it starts to try to pull out of my shoulder. And most people, as they reload a conventional rifle to prevent it from tipping forward, then they tuck the stock underneath their shoulder. And so just the balance of the rifle makes it much easier and less stressful to manipulate and carry. The next benefit on a bullpup rifle is the shootability. And so you can have faster follow-up shots, less muzzle rise, less muzzle disturbance in rapid firing, because the point of inertia is further back and it's in a stronger range of a person's grip. And so it's back here at my hands, whereas with a conventional rifle, it's happening in front of where my strongest control is. And if you imagine holding a broomstick and you have that broomstick clear out here, somebody's grabbing the muzzle and wiggling it around, the leverage of that movement is very hard to stabilize and hold still. Whereas if you grab all the way at the tip of the broomstick and the person is trying to move it, I have a heck of a lot more power and control of the movement of the gun. In addition, having that center balance gives me very fast transition ability. I'm not fighting the muzzle trying to kind of get away from itself and having a hard time transitioning back and forth between targets. So why don't more people shoot bullpups? It's because historically, the first bullpups that were made had some design challenges that hurt the performance of the gun. For example, they initially had really mushy triggers because the Steyr AUG, the grandfather bullpup, really has a sliding mechanism where you pull the trigger and it has to push two rods, and those rods have flex and it has a very long length of travel. We don't have that issue. Our bullpup rifle has a pivot mechanism that goes forward, and it allows us to have a very high quality duty trigger in this gun. So very smooth, and it's like 4.5 pounds of weight. The second belief about bullpups is they think that the controls of the bullpup are somehow not as ergonomic and don't work as well as a conventional rifle. That's not true. So we have placed our magazine button release in the exact same position as the M4 and M16 rifles. We also place the safety selector in the same position as an M4 M16, making it a 45-degree throw. We have a third mag release to allow for a single-handed stripping of a magazine in case of a malfunction, where you can just push the button and rip the magazine out with one hand. And lastly, our bolt stop is behind the magazine right here. And so we have a faster magazine reload because we can, in the same stroke of inserting the magazine, we can hit that bolt release. Whereas on an M4, M16, you slap the mag in and you got to come up and hit the side of the gun. Now, some people get pretty good at, kind of bringing their thumb up on the side and then hitting it, but it's definitely not as fast as being able to just hit the bolt stop in the back there. The next false belief of the bullpup systems is that they won't have enough accessory rail space, and that was true on the Steyr AUG rifle. It's not true on the Wolverine rifle because we have a substantial amount of rail space on all versions of our our rifles, as well as M-LOK slots down the sides and on the bottom. Now this gun sports a Black Label integrated bipod, and so this doesn't have quite as much M-LOK slots as our standard handguard would have, but you have plenty of room to put your enablers on the Wolverine rifle systems. Another belief is that magazine changes are less intuitive or slower. However, I find myself that having the magazine well in my space closer to my body, I have better dexterity than reaching up here. And if you watch anybody load conventional rifles, generally they're bringing the gun back so that they can have it closer in their space to get access to the magazine well. And so you can keep your rifle up on a bullpup and load a magazine without really having to come down and tuck the rifle under your arm to do it. The last complaint about bullpups is they claim you can't shoot it weak-sided. However, you can shoot it weak-sided even though the brass ejects from the right. And with the Wolverine, we can, I've shot it many times just with my standard hold, and you know, the brass might bump my chin a little bit. It doesn't hurt, doesn't cause a problem. Now, I don't advise you position your head where the brass can hit your face, because you don't want to bounce that brass back in and cause a malfunction. But you can intentionally gooseneck your head back a little bit and facilitate very controllable shots and very easy shooting. Now, the conventional tactics that are taught today discourages shoulder transitions. So with the MDR, you know, we had that concept of, you know, an operator can sit there and transition as he goes around corners, but in practice, the schoolhouses are finding that hurts the shooter's performance. And as I have done this, you know, tried these shoulder transitions in airsoft where it's very stressful and people are firing back and you really are trying to minimize your exposure, I have found that it's very clunky and it's easy to actually drop your gun or slow things down trying to change your grip around very rapidly. And the times that I actually like doing shoulder transitions, I didn't change my grip on the gun at all. Rather, I had my head up on the rifle and I would just keep my grip the same and transition like this back and forth. And as I do that, you can see that it by default places my head farther back on this side, just from the position of where my arms are at. So, and the interesting thing is everybody's crying about the ejection coming out on the right side of the gun back by your face. However, you look at modern tactics for CQB with a conventional rifle, to tuck the rifle in nice and tight is to put the buttstock over your shoulder and enter the room like that, which is interesting because that's the point that a bullpup rifle stock would be. And so they're having an even worse modification, not only to their weak side hold, but to their strong side hold. So they're coming through rooms with the gun up like this, and they don't even have it in their shoulder whatsoever. So it's really interesting when it comes to a bullpup that people sit there and say it's not feasible when it's very feasible. But at the same time, they accept a practice of putting a stock over the back of their shoulder to achieve, in essence, what you can achieve with a bullpup without having to do that. So I don't know, there's a lot of very frustrating practices that people do to accommodate the deficiencies in a conventional rifle. And so at the very end of my discussion with this gentleman, I told him, I says, the better question to ask is why in the world would somebody design a conventional rifle and give up all of the benefits that are achieved with a bullpup rifle? Let me know in the comments what you agree or disagree with. I hope this video starts some controversy, because there is a lot of bad stuff that is just accepted because the military adopted it and nobody really wants to say anything different. It's like the SIG 320 debacle right now. It's very obvious that there's a pretty substantial problem there, but you have a lot of people that, you know, the military adopted it, so it's perfect mentality. And the M4 itself, you know, there's a lot of flaws with the M4 platform. You know, your buffer tube is a point of fragility. A lot of M4 design rifles, their barrel mount, their barrel trunnion, you know, it alters your zero as you put different tension on the handguard, you know, from prone to offhand and whatnot. I don't like some other things about the gun too, and I don't want to get into that, but the point I'm trying to make is there are accommodations and that everybody is very happy to deal with to accept flaws in whatever the military is using, whereas you have a new product like our Wolverine, and they're hypercritical of things that really are not an issue and have been proven to not be an issue. Anyways, it's just pretty interesting. Please like this video so it'll be promoted to other people, and subscribe to the channel to get more content like this. Thanks for watching.